Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessica, and today we're getting into the Real Housewives of Atlanta season 16, episode 2 review. This episode is called Hot Dogs and Hot Mics. So we open up with Shamia sharing how she's connected to everyone on the cast, and she considers herself to be the glue of the friend group. And I just feel like she did not exhibit very glue-like behavior at her party when they all went to that separate room to kind of hash things out between Kelly, and she just out of nowhere brings up Drew and Dennis. First of all, Portia is very pressed over this. She's pressed and it shows. I feel what she's saying. In last week's review, I shared that if I was Portia, I would not want anything to do with Drew just off principle. I do consider it to be a violation to be my friend and have all this going on outside of my knowledge with my baby daddy. Like, that's just, it doesn't look good no matter what's going on. But at the same time, karma. Like, you was in Fallon's house. You did the little fist bump with Simon, which was kind of awkward. When they were playing like the replay of how Portia and Simon met, and I don't know if they played it last week, if they played it this week, but when she first went to Fallon's home and she met Fallon and met Simon, it was like they were going in for a handshake. It was just weird, which already kind of indicated in my mind that something could have, been there. But this is just karma. Like, she's looking at Drew in the way that she was when she met Simon and saw, oh, this could be me. But at the end of the day, it's still a messed up situation, and it doesn't look good on Drew's part. But I just really can't care because Portia is a nasty, low down individual herself. And you'll see, or you may have seen throughout this episode, Portia moves as if she owns Dennis. And I don't know if this is their dynamic outside of TV or, their celebrity status, but she kind of moves like she owns him. As far as what Drew, how she tried to defend herself, the way that Drew talks about Dennis indicates to me that she might be crushing on him, whether she realizes it or not. But using terms like my angel, he did this, he was there, like that is too much. And it makes her side of the story kind of like, I ain't gonna say unbelievable, but it's just suspect. Like, regardless of how I feel about Portia, I still think that this situation is suspect. We get an intro of Angela in episode 2, and her husband, like Charles, he don't play. He is very straightforward. Again, we see more of what we saw in the first episode. And I feel him on that kitchen. Like, I don't like to go and cook when there's a sink full of dishes. So I understood where he was coming from. But I think that he needs to get with the program. It kind of, I'm not gonna say that he is intentionally behaving away in front of the cameras because he's a superstar in his own right in his space. But I feel like this is his wife's time to shine. And I don't know if he's completely comfortable with that or if he'd be willing to adjust the way he's behaving for the sake of her. Because we know how when we see couples and marriages on TV, people get to picking in the marriage and making assumptions and saying these things. And it does sometimes go on to destroy those marriages, or at least cause moments of confusion or conflict. And I could see Charles' behavior doing that for their marriage or even for their reputation as being part of this show. And I hope that he softens up a little bit and lets his wife shine. Because it kind of like he was making these jokes, and it very may well be who he is because she kept saying, I love my husband the way he is, who he is. And I totally get that. But at the same time, he needs to get with the program and stop being so extra because he's being a little extra with his behavior, in my opinion. Kenya and Portia go on a brunch date, and Portia finally like lets it out that her issue is Drew filming with Dennis. I wrote in my notes, I get it, but she can't control that man. And I still feel like that. But I guess at the end of the day, Dennis is he's his own person. Drew, if he has a relationship or friendship with Drew and she wants to film with him, just because his introduction to the show was through Portia doesn't mean that it has to stay that way. And it's very manipulative on Portia's behalf. It seems like she's almost throwing a tantrum because he's refusing to not film with Drew because it makes her uncomfortable for whatever reasons there may be. And on her talking about Simon's lies and there being another wife and all that. Like, that's what happens when you rush into a relationship with someone because you thought you had a meal ticket. Like, you didn't give yourself time to know him, to even know what he may have been lying about, to get to know his character. It takes a while to know a person. So that, again, like I said last week, I just really can't care about Portia and Simon's storyline. Like, I really don't, because she completely and totally brought that on herself. So we see Kelly at her restaurant location. I really respect her hustle and her drive for her children. And because we're getting this behind the scenes information about her divorce and how her ex husband is carrying on, I really, really respect it about her. Shout out to her project manager because he communicated very transparently with her about, hey, we're not going to meet this deadline. It's in serious jeopardy. And this shows that he's a good team member. So Britt gets her introduction and we learn more about her and her husband. And there's been like conversation about her husband on if he's gay, if he loves her, and all that. He kind of gives the same as Charles. Like, they're not really fully with this program of being on this show and kind of, letting this window into their world. He doesn't seem gay to me. I just feel like Brittany is way up here and he has more of a mellow personality. And what he said about her planning every single thing is valid. Like, some things that it's beneficial for you to plan, and then others you just need to let it happen naturally. So I don't see anything wrong with it, especially when you're thinking about children. Fortunately for me, like, I haven't had struggles having children. Like, I was none of my children were planned. So I may not be the one to speak on it, but it just seems like unnecessary stress and pressure to try to make a baby. Like, I think if a couple says, "Hey, if it happens, cool. Like, if you want to get pregnant, I'm down." But you don't have to say, "Hey, we got to have sex at this time and we got," like that that's too much in my opinion. So speaking of making babies, Shamia goes to visit her surrogate, who we remember with Candy. She actually carried Candy's daughter. I have mixed feelings about surrogacy, really about childbirth and planning a family just in general, because I think that sometimes in our desires, and again, because I have not struggled with it, maybe I'm not the one to speak on it, but I just feel like we complicate things. Like, just because we want something to happen at that time and in this moment doesn't mean that that's what God wants for our life. And sometimes we end up causing things by going outside of that order. But again, I do recognize, like, I'm speaking from a point of privilege in that I haven't had those types of issues. So I am sensitive to that. But it just seems like when you think about Black maternal mortality and how bad those numbers are, I could never like willingly be somebody's surrogate. Like, I just couldn't do it. I really couldn't do it because you already have those complications. So to have babies as a business just seems like a huge risk that you don't necessarily have to take. But for women like Shamia who struggle, or not Shamia, but just women in general who struggle with having babies, I can understand why there's a need for that. I just have mixed feelings about it because it's such a risky thing for a Black woman to go to a hospital and give birth. So many Black women don't make it back home. And I just, as a Black woman, let's say if I wanted a child and I couldn't have one, knowing that, I don't know, regardless of if that service is available, I don't know if I want to even, like, or would want to even like utilize that type of service because of the risk that it would put the surrogate at too. It's just really complicated, and I acknowledge that, but it's just kind of odd to sit across the table talking about finding a woman to carry a baby. I don't know if I could go through that myself. But I do like, regardless of my mixed feelings on it, I do appreciate how black maternal mortality rates and the whole issues and disparities with that are being highlighted through this show and through Married to Medicine. We definitely need the amplification of that issue, because it's not getting better. Even though technology is advancing, medicine is advancing, the maternal mortality rate for black women is not getting better. So I like that we're actually able to to bring light to that issue. So we go to Kelly and Britt, the two dog moms. Kelly, no, Britt is talking about their courthouse wedding. I am so in favor of those. My husband and I actually got married at the courthouse. The only regret, and I do mean only, the only regret I have is not having pictures. And that's because we kind of just was like, we're just going to get married. I wasn't thinking about trying to get a photographer and get a dress and all that at that time. But if I could go back and do it, I would. So that's like the only regret that I have. But other than that, just get married at the courthouse. It's easier. Also, I want to go back to, because they brought that up in the scene with Kenya talking to Britt about her ring. Initially, I thought that Kenya might have been shading her, and she probably was, but I understand what she was asking, because normally you have two bands when you're married. You have your engagement ring and your actual wedding band. So she only had her engagement ring on. So that's where that question about the second ring came from. As far as Kelly's divorce drama, I'm glad she's out of that toxic situation because it sounded really bad. Drew, Angela, and Shamia meet up to work out. And I put in my notes, is Drew wearing go naked hair? Probably not. But Drew's talking about how she felt at the party, and again, her actions were sus. Portia was wrong, Shamia was wrong. They were wrong for double teaming her, and I can understand how that feels, especially if, and that's a big if, she's telling the truth. Ralph, we know how much of an asshole Ralph is, and what she could possibly be going through with him, especially with him still being in the basement. So I'm sure she has a lot going on, and for Portia and Shamia to double team her like that was crazy. I have to say, like, as she was talking about the situation with Angela and with Shamia, I kind of felt like it was a little bit more believable. Like she might actually be telling the truth, and it may not be anything romantic going on. But whether or not like her or Dennis are doing anything to dig at Portia, I can't really say. They don't seem to really care too much about Portia. So I don't know if, I don't know what's really going on with them, but after she kind of explained it, it was slightly more believable to me. How can Shamia say that she doesn't want beef after how she introduced that whole conversation at the party? And this is where this scene also was another scene that made me look at Shamia a different way. It seems like Dennis and Drew both kind of took the proper steps. Love or hate what they're doing, it seems like they did go through the proper steps and talk to Portia about it. I agree with Angela that Shamia shouldn't have brought it to the group. Like, if this is between Portia and Dennis and Drew, let them handle it. You took the light off of yourself at your own birthday party to bring up this situation because Portia's feeling away. And that's why people think that Shamia is Portia's sidekick or her lapdog. I fully agree with that now after looking at that scene, because you can't say on one side like Angela shouldn't have been talking about, like, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to Drew, when you brought up that situation to Drew when Portia could have said something. Now, going to the highlight of the episode, which was Portia and Dennis meeting up. First of all, that little hug that they gave, there was not a baby mama, baby daddy type of hug. I don't care what nobody say. It was not that. Somebody still got some feelings somewhere. I feel like Portia kind of lied to Dennis about how Drew was, I guess, describing their friendship. She did say that it was business, that it had to do with her music career. But Portia said that Drew said it was more than business. So that was a lie to me. That wasn't the complete truth. Now, did it sound like it could be more than business? Yeah. But did she say it was more? No. That said, Drew and Dennis are both, to an extent, kind of gaslighting Portia about their friendship, trying to act like, hey, it's cool, it's nothing, you shouldn't feel away. When in fact she should. But at the same time, Portia needs to realize that she can't control either of them. Like whether it look good or not, whether you like it or not, whether you introduce them, whatever the situation is, she cannot control them because she's not with Dennis. And why can't she film with him if they're working on music together? Like, are you worried about them maybe taking some shine away from you? Like, what I want to know what completely is Portia's issue if her and Dennis are not together, Drew and Dennis are not together. What is the problem with him filming with her if they're working on her music? If you ask me, she should be thankful that they're filming because it's giving her something more to talk about than Simon, in my opinion. And you can tell that she really, really feels away because this is where the hot mics come in. How he told her, like, hey, the mic is hot, we're still rolling. She was like, oh, you would know, wouldn't you? Like, she was really mad that he was being associated with Drew when this man has been on reality TV before. It just came off like Portia is pressed and like she might still want him. So my closing thoughts, I didn't really have a lot to say about this episode. It was slightly better than the premiere. So I will give it another 3.5. Originally I had a 4. But I'm gonna give it another. Well, I'll go and give it a 4. I'll go and give it a 4 out of 5 peaches because we did get more than one juicy scene. As far as the cast, Kelly moved up for me. I like her a little bit more. Shamia went down. I don't like what I'm seeing from Shamia. I'm really, really hoping that this is not the role that she's going to play throughout the season because she has so much more to give. And it would, to me, feel like she's more comfortable when it comes to reality TV being under Portia's shadow because right now she's doing all of Portia's dirty work. Aside from confronting Kelly directly, she is the reason why Portia and Drew even had it out in the first place. So I hope she would play, more of a role with her own life and her own story than that. Like give us some drama in your life. Don't do Portia's bidding. Angela grew on me. And I still think Britt is cuckoo. Like she's crazy. It's clear that Drew is going through a lot, and I would have personally loved to see Kenya's confessionals about all of this stuff going on. It's almost a tease to have Kenya there, but not have her confessionals because I know that it's so much more that she could add. But that's all I have to say about this episode. Y'all let me know what you think. I'm trying to review this whole season. And so far we have a slow start, but I'm hopeful. And I guess I will see y'all in the next episode. Peace.